Pleasure to welcome most sincerely and very warmly Dr. Ansari. It is indeed a double warm greeting because it's not very often that we see so many women gathered together for any event. And I hope that this will not be the last of many cultural evenings for them. Dr. Ansari is not stranger to Pretoria, and possibly many of us will be the second time we'll be listening to him. And for those who have not been here or heard him before, may I just say that besides being a medical doctor, Dr. Ansari is also a Bachelor of Theology, an MA in Physics Science, a medical doctor, a Bachelor of Law, and the only alim in the entire Muslim world with a PhD in philosophy, for which he gained a distinction of 98%, which has been unbroken for 30 years. He is also a missionary of world repute and has traveled 5 times around the world. Well, with a man of this caliber in our midst, I hope that a lot of us will listen to him very intently and possibly carry home many of the things he has to say to us. And now may I call upon the Hafiz Abu Bakr to take over.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Madam Chair, distinguished guest Dr. Ansari, and brothers and sisters in Islam, I do not wish to add to what Madam Chair has already told you about our distinguished personality in the name of Dr. Muhammad Fazlur Rahman Ansari, except that here is a man who has traveled 5 times around the world, and a man who has combined both worlds, the world of our times and also the world relating to the metaphysics and the spiritual aspects of Islam. And it is his unique and distinctive combination of both that has made him one of the foremost luminaries of the Islamic world and one who has blazed a trail among the intellectuals all over the world. We therefore should take advantage of this opportunity of having him here, especially the young people. I am sure that you will agree with me that more and more young people are more and more and better equipped to meet the demands of our times. But I am sure that you will also agree with me that despite all these advantages, we are very far different from the Islamic society that is envisaged in the Holy Quran. The pertinent question that we should ask ourselves very sincerely is, what is the missing link? As I have said to the youth of Cape Town, and which I repeat here this evening to the women folk and to the men folk, the missing link appears to be on insulation from change. We are like the proverbial ostrich. When he is being hunted, it buries its head in the soil and pretends that nothing's happening. In a similar fashion, the Muslim community of South Africa has, through a great deal of thought of its own, pretended that nothing serious is happening and that there are no serious inroads into the very fabric of our existence. We must realize that we are at the crossroads and that we have to make a decision, and that the decision must be made now. It must be made by the youth, because the destiny of Islam in this country as a meaningful way of life in our day-to-day living rests fully and squarely on the shoulders of the Muslim youth, comprising of both young women and young men. We must realize again that if we wish to see our aspirations realized, if we wish to bring coordination, if we wish to bring unification of the Muslims, if we wish to restore the values of Islam so that our day-to-day living is meaningful, then we must make a complete overhauling of our present mentality and outlook. Far too long have we allowed the society to meander into a course or to stand still, so that the superstructure of the Islamic society has been covered with barnacles, with qualities that are totally incompatible with Islam, qualities in the form of pride in the sense that we are a blessed people, and the fact that we are Muslims, therefore we have an automatic passport to heaven. Arrogance, because we feel that we are a chosen people, because we feel that we have the best religion. Superstition, because of our ignorance of the very spirit of Islam and our emphasis on the letter or the external form of Islam. Sectionalism, because we are divided by tribal loyalties or loyalties on the fact that we have arrived or we came from certain areas in different parts of India. And so on, with the result that our history in this country has been nothing but one of fragmentation, one of confrontation. And this has dissipated the energies of the Muslims here, with the result that the present unhappy state of affairs in which we find ourselves is a direct consequence of this. Therefore, in order to overcome this, we cannot ask the older generation to do what is beyond their capacities. This would be unfair. They have already made their institutions and established mosques and madrasas and various other things which we find today. It is the responsibility of those 60% of the youth of the Republic to take these institutions and to imbibe and to instill in such institutions the true values of Islam, values such as common courtesies, values such as social responsibility, values such as social justice. Unless and until we practice these values, Islam can never become meaningful in our lives. And certainly, does not the Quran say, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah does not change the condition of a people until they begin to change what is in themselves. This therefore places us in a situation where we must make a decision not on the basis of emotion, but on the basis of a responsibility towards Islam. Because if we are to do justice as the inheritors of this beautiful pattern, the pattern of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as the Quran says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. In the Messenger of Allah, you have the most beautiful pattern of conduct. If we are to do this, then we must galvanize ourselves. We must marshal the energies of the youth, their skill, their usefulness, their advance in technology, all these in the form of a youth movement. The Muslim youth movement in Durban was not merely a gathering of young people simply because they felt that they had nothing else to do. It was more the making of his own times, when young people felt that our goal now is to bring about a restoration of the values, and we can only do this by emphasizing to the many other young people that you should now drop your guilt complex and participate, no longer be satisfied to be a non-participant in Islamic affairs, but become an active partner in Islam. And this movement thereafter forms its various branches and various groups all over the country, with the result that through these branches, young people, both men and women, can come together and give their fair share to the cause of restoration of Islam here in this country. Therefore, it is absolutely essential that just as men and women, both the Muslim Youth movement and its subsidiary body, the Women's Council, has taken a beginning, and equally so, an undertaking is being formed in the Cape that responsible and thinking young women and men in the Transvaal should also go along with the rest of the youth in the two remaining provinces, with the result that, inshallah, these three growth points of youth movements will move towards each other, not on a collision course, but towards a unification, towards a federation of larger youth movements. And it is only then that we will be able to really do justice to what the Quran says, كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ. You will be the best of communities if you enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong and believe in Allah. In that context, brothers and sisters in Islam, Dr. Fazlur Rahman Ansari, who had attended the convention of the Muslim Youth Movement at As-Salam, has given us some brilliant suggestions and the ideological guidelines for the movements in the various provinces. And I'm sure that when he departs, young men and women from Pretoria will come forward and go ahead with this in consultation with the existing movements in Natal and the one to be formed in the Cape, so that we will be able to move away from this, from the crossroads in which we find ourselves, and from the situation in which the Orientalist Wilfred Cantwell Smith described the Muslims of today, that they are sandwiched between the pressures of their glorious past and the heralding of an uncertain future. This, I think, we should bear in mind and move ahead from this, so that Islam once more will become meaningful for all of us in our day-to-day living. I will now call on Dr. Ansari to take the floor and to deliver his talk for the evening. Assalamu alaikum.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. ونشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا وطبيب قلوبنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله الذي يرسل إلى الناس كافة وإلى الخلق عامة بشيرا ونذيرا بين يدي الساعة. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وانعم وزد وتفضل وبارك على سيد السادات وأفضل الموجودات وأشرف الموجودات وأحسن الموجودات وأكرم الموجودات وأجمل الموجودات وأكمل الموجودات سيدنا ومولانا محمد رسول الله صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى جميع ملائكة المعصومين وعلى جميع عباد الصالحين. My dear sisters and brothers in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I have been told that this is essentially the gathering of Muslim ladies and the Muslim youth, and I have been called upon to deliver a message this evening in a manner whereby both of these sections and also the elders, the venerable elders who are here, they can benefit from it. This has become slightly difficult task. There are numerous things on which I would like to speak to you, which I think are of very great importance, because as Hafiz Abu Bakr has said in his speech just now, Muslims are at the crossroads. May I add to it that entire humanity is at the crossroads. And because, unfortunately, Muslims have accepted the role of camp followers, of being the camp followers of others, the role of imitation, forgetting their own reality and trying to imitate others, trying to look at everything that glitters, although it may not be gold. The problems for the Muslim community are infinitely more serious than the problems for other communities of the world whom they imitate. The tragic history behind all this situation need not be told here by me, but I should say in one word at the very outset, with all the seriousness at my command, that if the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ were to come back to this earth among us today, probably he will not be able to recognize us as his followers. We have drifted from Islam to such an extent that there seems to be no future for us until and unless we are ready to take a stock of the situation very intelligently and very honestly. Unless we take the bold step of jumping backwards, of course for advancing ourselves into the history of Islam and trying to find out the original message that was given by the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the foundations on which he built up that revolution in human history which forms the greatest miracle for all time. This is a job which has got to be done, and in this connection, some of the great reformers who arose among Muslims during the last 500 years of decline, this is the motto which they always projected. Us before us. Whether the reformer was Khairuddin Barbarossa, or the reformer was Mustafa Fazil Pasha, or the reformer was Sayyid Jamaluddin Al-Afghani, or the reformer was Sir Sayyid Ahmad Khan, or the reformer was the late Dr. Sir Muhammad Iqbal. They have given this clarion call. But it is unfortunate that this clarion call has been lost in the crossfire of conservatism and modernism. And there has been a prejudice against this call and people have not been able to understand it properly. And consequently, when I stand up here tonight to give a message, especially to our young ladies and our young men, who are the holders of the destiny of this community for tomorrow, I feel very diffident in coming out openly, but I think that is my duty and I should do it. My dear sisters and brothers, all philosophies of life and all codes of life are built up on a value system. There are certain values which every ideology and which every philosophy of life and which every code of life wants to realize in practical life. And the same is the case with Islam. Islam arose with a value system. Then from that value system emerged a system of norms, and from those norms came up a code of, what I should say, principles. And at the fourth stage came a code of laws. Then at the fifth stage came institutions. To be short, what the Muslims of today have lost is the value system, the norms, the principles, even the laws, and what has remained is the last product of this process, the institutions. One of the institutions is Salah, which is obligatory on all Muslims and which is an extremely valuable institution, the fundamental institution without which a person cannot be a Muslim. Another institution is fasting, and another institution is zakat, and another institution is the Hajj. And then there are certain social institutions like those of marriage and burial and so on, and birth and death and so on. If we have any knowledge at all, or if we try to realize Islam in our lives, our eyes are focused only on these institutions. The institutions are valuable, decidedly. They form a very vital part of Islam. But what has happened is that we do not possess today a full-fledged philosophy of life. And for this philosophy of life, we have got to go this way and that. And the philosophy of life that emerges before us with all its power is the Western philosophy of life. Everything with us throughout the world of Islam today is Western. And on that has been grafted Islam. That Islam is the religion of the masjid and of the mimbar and of the pilgrimage to the Kaaba. Nothing beyond that. Or we might somehow or the other try to have some regard for our customs, social customs which we have inherited from our forefathers. Although all those social customs are not necessarily Islamic, but anything which is inherited from the forefathers acquires a sort of sanctity. Here ends our whole story of Islam. It is not only in this country where Muslims are a hopeless minority. It is also in Pakistan where Muslims are a full-fledged majority, overwhelming majority. It is also in Turkey where Muslims are 99.9%. It is also in Egypt and it is also elsewhere. Even among the Muslim majority, Muslim areas and communities, the same thing happens. And as I said, the Muslims have been caught in the crossfire of conservatism and modernism. The elderly people want to be conservative. This is the natural demand, the physiological demand of an elderly person to be conservative. He wants to conserve everything. It is the temperamental demand. And therefore, we cannot curse our elders if they are conservative. Then, the natural demand of the nature of the youth, of the young ladies and the young men, is to move forward. They are dynamic in their outlook. They don't want to stay where they are. They have the bubbling flame, bubbling energy in their veins, and they are growing. So they want to grow in every direction. Now the elderly persons, when they give them advice, when the parents sit down and give the advice to their young daughter or to their young son, these youngsters might listen to that advice with patience out of courtesy. But very few of them would of course like to be very sincere to what their parents tell them. Or when they go to the masjid, if they ever happen to go to the masjid. Because most of us are now part-timer Muslims. We have got a time for Islam and the rest is for the world. If at all we ever have the opportunity of going to the masjid, then we come face to face with the Mawlana Sahib, who is the Imam or the Khatib of the masjid. Unfortunately, as the youngsters think, they find the Mawlana Sahib even more conservative than their parents. When they go into the masjid, they say, Mawlana Sahib says, well, your trouser is hanging slightly 1/millionth of 1 inch below your knees. I haven't said that particular bone, what is called ankle. You see, and your shirt sleeves are not of the measure, they are a little less than what the measure should have been. And why have you come into the masjid to pray? You are a fasiq, your namaz will not be accepted. And so this young man, if he ever stumbles into the masjid, he comes out confounded and he shivers and trembles and then tries to tries to rethink. And he goes on thinking, I am a Muslim. Why I am a Muslim? Then he gets the answer, I am a Muslim because my parents gave me a Muslim name, and my parents and my grandparents on both sides, paternal and maternal, they have been called Muslims. I am a member of the Muslim community, I am a Muslim. He accepts that. That is, for that we are deeply grateful to him, that he accepts at least this much. Gave me a Muslim name, and my parents and my grandparents on both sides, paternal and maternal, they have been called Muslims. I am a member of the Muslim community, I am a Muslim. He accepts that. That is, for that we are deeply grateful to him, that he accepts at least this much. Because we have not given to him anything. We don't give to them anything. Actually speaking, we don't open the ways for them in accordance with the natural demands of their personalities. Even up to this day, let me be frank, I am not trying to hit anyone. Remember this, my function is not to hit, but truth is bitter. Up to this day, for instance, there are so many things which we use. There are so many things which have become custom with us, but the fatwa on those things is that they are forbidden. Now when a young man hears the fatwa on the one hand and sees the custom on the other, you see, he finds that his elders are, God forbid, hypocrites. He feels that way. He feels that. You know, youth is the age of innocence. And a youth is always, a young man or a young woman is always more holy and sacred than an elderly person, because the elderly person accumulates more sins. The youth, because of less age, has less sins to his or to her credit. And the youth is straightforward. We who become elders, we have to pass through different ordeals, and those different ordeals give us new dimensions of thought and action, and we very often do not remain straightforward. We believe in the philosophy of the fox, you see, moving this way and that way, you see, like this, in order to achieve our goal. So because the youth has that innocence and that straightforwardness, of course what it lacks is experience of life, which the elders have. He doesn't have that. And when he finds all these things happening in the community, when he finds that in the Muslim community there is no system of values, I am not speaking of this country, but I know very well the country in which I live. Most of the big businessmen in my country, in my city of Karachi where I live, where I have lived for 25 years, they are Hajis who have performed the Hajj several times and the Umrah several times. But it is a well-known fact that to be able to find out an honest businessman among Muslims of Karachi would be a difficult job. To find the Hajis would be easy. Numberless Hajis, you see, but to find honest businessmen would be a difficult job. I don't say that there are not honest businessmen among them, but their numbers are so few that it is always a pleasant surprise to meet a person who is a businessman and a Haji and also honest. Or look to the family lives of the people. I, as a person who is considered, and unfortunately so far as I am concerned, who is considered to be a sort of a spiritual leader or something like that. So many men and women come to me every day with their problems, you see. Somebody wants a dua, and somebody wants a taweez, and somebody wants arbitration, and somebody wants advice, and somebody wants this and that. And there, as I sit with these people who come to me, I make discoveries which make my life impossible. I mean, say, peculiar things which you can never imagine happening in Muslim society. A person is a Haji. He may also be a Mawlana. He is a very, 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 very sacred type of person. But then when his wife comes to me and tells me a tale of woe, I think, I am just stunned. I say, what has happened? Am I really listening to some story which is the truth, or is it some fiction? And when these things are repeated, then I say what Akbar has said, Musalman dar gor, Musalmani dar kitab. That the Muslims are in the graves and Islam is in the book. Now, take to the other point. Take to the other point of view and take another standpoint. All the material progress in the world is being made by the non-Muslims. All the material progress in the world is being made by the non-Muslims. And we are dependent on them to an extent that if the non-Muslims do not make this pair of glasses for me, I won't be able to see you properly and come here and stand and give you a lecture. If the non-Muslims were not to invent this microphone, then I would not be able to speak to you with that ease with which I am speaking. I might have to stand there and howl and cry in order that you may be able to listen to me. And the most pitiable part of it is that our religious thought is deadly opposed to this material progress. It is not only that when the British rule came to India and they brought the new knowledge of science and philosophy and all those things, that the fatwa was given that to get English education or Western education is kufr. That fatwa holds up to this day. And whatever knowledge Muslims have acquired, they have acquired in spite of that fatwa. Now this is a very intriguing situation. If Dr. Khalid, who is a doctor and who is serving his community in his town, if he has acquired this knowledge of being an MBBS and being a doctor, he has done it against that fatwa, so what will be the conscience of Dr. Khalid if he becomes conscious of it? He has done something profane and he wants to be a good Muslim. So he might think in his heart of hearts that all my prayers and everything else, you see, is going to be neutralized because I have committed such a big fundamental sin. Now, when Hafiz Abu Bakr was saying this, that Muslims stand at the crossroads, he was saying 100%, he was speaking 100% truth. And when Hafiz Abu Bakr said that the Muslim community is pursuing the ostrich policy, that the ostrich with the hunter chases the ostrich, you see, then the ostrich runs for a while and then puts its head into the soil and feels that all is well with him. We are just moving in that fashion. Not only this is small community in South Africa, but the Muslim communities everywhere. So, our problem today is that for certain rituals we have to go to the Mawlana Sahib, who is here, the Imam of the Masjid in Lodi. For certain things we have to go to him. How many sunnah are there in wudu and how many sunnah are there in namaz and such namaz and how many fard and how many nafl and how many this. Or when somebody dies, then Mawlana Sahib should come and stand up there and pray. Or if somebody is born, then Mawlana Sahib is called and you may give the azan in the right ear, then in the left ear, the iqamah. Nothing beyond that. Then for everything else, we have to go to someone else. He may be a white man, or he may be a colored person, or he may be anybody, you see, we have got to go to some, or he may be a Muslim or a non-Muslim. But he is a product of this modern Western European anti-Islamic civilization. So we find ourselves between the devil and the deep sea. And that is the cause. One gentleman came to me last night and he said that you must say something to the young men and young ladies that they should become very good Muslims. I said, I don't possess any such magic wand. You see, show to them that Islam is good for them, they will follow it. Because every human being wants to know what is good for that human being. There are very few human beings who know that a certain thing is bad for them and they still want to take to that thing and stay there. So give them the message of Islam, but this message of Islam is to be given to them in what manner? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, Udu ila sabil rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasana. Call to the way of thy Lord with wisdom and the sweetest, the gentlest and the best exhortation. Then there is the problem of exemplification. The example has got to be set by the elders in order that the youth may follow. So if the youth find that the example which the elders are setting is something which they cannot imitate properly unless they damage some of their interests as young men or as young ladies, they are not going to imitate. So the example also has got to be set in such a manner that this community is living now towards the fag end of the 20th century. 3/4 of this 20th century has passed. Man has landed on the moon and is preparing to land on Venus and Mars. This is the century. This is the century of of immense technological advances. the computer has come and star telephone is going to come very shortly and television telephone is going to follow suit. You see, in the fields of communication and in all the various dimensions of the human life, changes are taking place at an enormous pace. How should these youth adjust themselves in it? That is one problem, one very important problem. Now, the other problem of this age is the problem of social justice. This problem of social justice may come under the cloak of communism, or it may come under the guise of any other name. But it is a universal problem. Because in every community there are a few who are at the top in point of wealth. And then there are others who belong to the middle class, and then there is a whole mass of human beings who are called the have-nots, or those who live at the poverty level. So those who live at the poverty level, and even those who belong to the middle class, there is a revolt among them. Why these few people have got more money than they can consume? This is the spirit of the age. This is for the demand of social justice. That we are all human beings and we should benefit from the resources of this world equally. There might be a minor margin, but basically everybody should live here like a human being with his or her basic needs properly fulfilled. These are the two demands. This is the course of human history. So these technological advances that are taking place at rapid pace, they are a challenge for us who have always looked backwards and never looked forwards. For the last 500 years we have done this job. Our greatest contribution to our history is that we have always refused to look forwards. And consequently we were finally caught in the trap. When the Western powers with their industrial and technological advancement, they came in small numbers, the British East India Company and the French East India Company and the Dutch East India Company and so on, they came in small numbers. And this great